Hello, cosplay world. We're back with a new project, as you might have suspected. This is Velvet from Tales of Berseria. I've made quite a few Tales of and cosplays, and there's a lot of Tales of games actually at this point. So I get them easily mixed up. Now let's see. This is going to be a 4-part series. We're going to have half here on YouTube and half here at finalcosplaycore.com, depending on where you're watching this. So I encourage you to check it out. We have tons of awesome stuff at finalcosplaycore.com, and I hope you guys enjoy. But let's start off with the first segment of our construction project, the prosthetic arm, the monstrous arm here. Now, a lot of people will do things like paper mache or use chicken wire. But chicken wire, the metal, it can scratch you fairly easily, and a lot of times people recommend you fix it up with a bit of finishing or wrapping things around. This is basically the same technique, except this plastic mesh, which by the way you can find in exactly the same area in your home improvement store as your chicken wire, is much softer. It'll hold the shape in almost the same fashion. Obviously chicken wire is going to be a bit more stable, but it is not going to cut you up because it's plastic, especially if you just trim off the little bits that are at the end of the shape. So what I do like about this is just like crocheting or needlepoint, they have a pattern to it, a square grid, and you're able to sew through this fairly easily and keep things lined up. And it provides a lot of anchor points for you to kind of hold your work together. As you can see, I have a few bits of what is it, twist ties? Yeah, twist ties, just to anchor stuff down where I can't necessarily get my hands in and sew very easily. It's a pretty quick, simple solution to that problem. Now, to make this a bit more comfortable and add a bit more texture and girth to the piece, we're going to be lining it. I mean, you can line this with whatever kind of material you're looking for your particular project, but for me, I'm looking for flesh, so I'm looking for a few wrinkles and a bit of thickness in the epidermis. I have done other monstrous builds where we have thinner builds, fabric, or I've even gone as far as heavier like jean fabric or pleather in some cases, but the material we're going to be using later doesn't stick too heavily with pleather. Pleather is more of a finished project in itself. So the idea here is, this is some cheap material, fleece. Yeah, you can get this fairly cheap by comparison, and it's going to sop up the coating we're going to be adding here in a moment. And I'm going to be cutting up these sections, layering first the palm and then the fingers, so that I don't end up with any exposed layers. And the design generally favors flames or some kind of growth. I'm not like, it's a weird magic aura of ghostness, fire, that the knuckles and the different joints of fingers overlap each other. So we're going to be working in exactly the same way as you would kind of a piece of plate armor. And because it's a bit monstrous, we don't need to be super exact. We just want to make sure that we don't have any kind of flat edges. We want these to be organic, and that's why I'm kind of cutting out irregular shapes and such and so forth. It's also a pretty good way to get rid of any old fabric that you don't have around. In general, it is hot glued into place because the mesh, you can kind of wrap the hot glue around as you pour it, and then the hot glue will stick to the fabric itself. The trim near the wrist where we stick our hand in, that is sewn down and overlaps so that we don't rub our arm against the mesh, and it's more comfortable overall. Also, there's a bit of lining on the inside too. Now this is latex roofing patch. Now this is going to give us the kind of feel of latex, but it's much cheaper. It is also not very good high quality. So if you're looking to work with high quality latex, by all means buy that. This is something that is not going to make regular contact with skin, and it's not meant to be incredibly high detail. This is a low detail, uneven texture. So if you're just looking to get kind of a weird flesh tone or a weird flesh texture, this is a cheap alternative. I don't recommend, actually I recommend you wear gloves. I'm not wearing gloves, but I recommend you wear gloves with this. With the sealant we're going to be doing here, this is roofing patch, this seals water away. The first pass we are just trying to get coverage. Once it dries, the second patch will, or second layer will even out the texture on the piece overall. We're kind of going to hide the fact that it's fabric with the latex roofing patch. It's also important to note that if you're using a fabric or some material that's absorbent, it has a very strong texture to it, such as corduroy, that will come through unless you do several layers. That's another reason why I'm using this fleece here, is because it has kind of a general uneven texture instead of your knitted fabrics. So I once the latex has dried, I took it out, hit it with some red spray paint. Unfortunately, I usually don't get footage of me spray painting, but it's spray paint. Cover the whole thing. I'll cover that in a different video or something. But we are going to be starting to add the details, and we're going to be working with a kind of flame pattern, and we're going to be drawing the outline. The idea is to break this up and create the pattern, which is flames. And so what I'm looking here is to make long triangular strokes, and then once we do have the areas sectioned off, we're going to begin blending them together. It's easier to, I guess, do black over red because black is a much stronger pigment. I've said this several times in videos. If I were to try and add red over the black, it would take several more layers. Although if you're working with, trying to work and do gradation, that might be maybe to your benefit and add undertones to your red, but it won't give you a strong flat red to start. And I will be coming back and doing some blending here once I do have these sort of I guess they're like a stripe pattern. Once I have this pattern done. But the idea is to not put too much on now, because it's going to be a pain in the butt to take the black off if I extend the lines. I can come in and water down the black and make blending much easier on myself here. And this is just a chip brush. This is what I'm using because it's such a big project. As you can see, it's taking up my entire workspace. It's almost in, well, I can't get it in frame, which is a little bit frustrating with some of my other work, my bigger works. But once we do have it done, I do believe I have gone over this with a bit of red. As you can see, the red acrylic paint has a different texture than the spray paint, so it provided a base. We came in with some red and we did some blending here. And to finish it, to give it that shiny, monstrous kind of glow about it, we are hitting it with a ton of gloss varnish here. And I'm going to go over this several times. It's kind of hard to notice right away. It might take you 2 or 3 tries to get inside the little cracks and crevices. I would turn it in the light to make sure that it was evenly textured. You can end up with, you know, just general little spots that don't match, and so that's kind of the easiest way to spot it, is to put it up against the light and check against any kind of flat texture versus the shininess that we're going for here. The idea, we're going to be finishing it in a bit more of this. It's going to be taking a beating, but that roofing patch is tough stuff. It will take con damage left and right. You don't need to worry about that unless you're actively running this thing over with like a car. It should bounce back from even that. Okay, so next time we're going to be doing some sewing. I hope you guys stick around and check that out. Thanks for watching, guys. Good times to all. Rah! Over at finalcosplaycore.com, there are hundreds of tutorials, pictures, walkthroughs, all that awesome cosplay goodness. Hope you check it out. Good times to all. Rah!